Well, hello. Hope you're doing really well. I am in glorious, just on the outskirts of Farnham, obviously in Waverley Abbey, if you didn't know already. But I'll be happy to fill you in for today. It's a gorgeous day today. Spring is fully in the air. And I'm running, interestingly, parallel to the River Way. And then behind me is a smaller sandstone outcrop, which can only mean one thing. We're off to see a cave, but we're off to see a very special cave, that of Mother Ludlam's cave. So stay with me, I think you're going to really like this one. Well, welcome back. Thank you for staying, hopefully watching and enjoying this video with me. So it's my second visit to Mother Ludlam's cave, and I've never recorded it, so it's the first time actually recording it. In fact, there it is. Now, what I want to try and do today is separate this into two distinct sections. The first thing we want to cover, or we want to talk about, is the myth of Mother Ludlam. And then the second part, I'm going to talk about the history. So, without further ado, let's talk about the myth of Mother Ludlam. If I keep, do you know what? It's such an easy thing to mispronounce. The story goes that Mother Ludlam was a white witch, and you could borrow stuff from her if you visited the cave, local residents. So they'd come up and they'd ask for something to borrow, or in other instances they could wish upon it on a midnight, come visit here, and then they'd get their whatever they needed, really, whether it's like trinkets or other specific things. Now in this case there was an incident of somebody wanting to borrow a cauldron. So they turn up, they get the cauldron, but they never return it. And because they don't return it, Mother Ludlam, she decides that she's going to basically just get angry and peed off, as you would if you ever borrowed something anyway. And what happened was that because this person was so scared of this sort of witch, sort of, you know, seeking anger, they went to the church, which is Frensham Church, and the cauldron is still there. We'll talk about all this in a minute, because I put that in brackets. And the myth or the legend goes that should the cauldron return to the cave, then so will the White Witch. She will return back to never leave this place again. Fascinating story, and I love those types of myths, and I think they're really interesting, and they really sort of cement history and folklore, more importantly. There's other instances of accounts of a devil also, but there are a few myths associated with this cave, but that's, or folklore, whatever you really want to call it, but that's the main one, the White Witch, Mother Ludlam, and the cauldron that is still there at the church, by the way. You can actually, I think you can still visit it. This beautiful cauldron. Now let's talk about the factual side of all of this. So that's all the myth and the legend. Again, there was an association with the devil, so I know some of you are probably going to be a bit peed off that I've not covered this fully, but really it's kind of difficult, because really I could have separated this into two separate videos, but I just fundamentally wanted to talk about each one on their own individual merit. So forgive me if I sort of skimmed through that story a little bit, because it is fascinating, but also it's folklore, it's tales, even though the cauldron exists. But we know that actually, by looking at that date wise and everything, nothing adds up about it. And yeah, enough said on it, I think. However, in the vicinity there are a few other caves, and it was noted that there were hermits and people living in these said little caves. Now Mother Ludlam's cave is probably the biggest one out of the sandstone caves that we're in. So actually, in terms of its importance, that's probably the most important one. But let's just digest all of that, and then I'm going to talk to you about it factually. Come on. Right, so now I want to sort of separate this video into two now, like we said before. So this second half now, I'm going to talk about the actual real history of this place. This is a natural spring within a cave, and actually it's probably because of that that this cave partially formed. And it's because of its use as a natural spring, so let's follow our finger of doom here. It heads down into the River Wey, which is just down there. And this spring was a natural water source for Waverley Abbey, which literally you could throw a stone at. I mean, it's probably about a 5-minute walk from here to Waverley Abbey, or the ruins of Waverley Abbey. And it was used as a natural water source for the monks and actually local residents as well. And they'd used this natural spring as a water source, beautiful, pure. But with that, obviously, came the natural formation of this wonderful cave. And this is where we're sort of talking about all of this being sort of factual in its sort of premise. Now, originally, this is probably more well known for a lot of locals as probably St Mary's Well. And that's probably what it would have been. Well, it would have been known as that because that's what its dedication was during the time at Waverley Abbey. I'm just going to try and peek you through it. And it was around 1218 that it was in use as the water supply for Waverley Abbey. And it originally measured about 200 feet long. But due to a collapse, which you can see, let me try and get you across there. Don't even see that up there. There's a sort of light there. That's in the 1960s. There was a collapse, and then it sort of became shorter to about 192 feet. So yeah, fascinating, really, the actual history of it. Now, where does the word Lud come from? Well, that's interesting as well. So there's multiple different versions of this, and probably one of the best versions is the word Lud, L-U-D, is actually a Celtic term. There's a couple of different meanings for it, but really in terms of what I'm going to refer to it as today, it's to do with a Celtic god. And then also that sort of illuminates the idea that this whole natural spring would have been used for years and years before Waverley Abbey's actual incarnation, which again is probably quite normal and natural to sort of understand that that's what it would have been used for. Obviously we can see this board being gated off, so we can't enter it, although if you look closely there's been a couple of fairy lights, and one of the main reasons, actually, interesting enough, I don't know why, one of the main reasons is because there are bats in there. Now I have cheekily brought a torch with me, so I'm going to just illuminate very briefly. Sorry. There you go. It's actually very difficult to try and find an angle. There you go. So yeah, absolutely fascinating. I mean, it's one that I said, this is the second time me visiting this, and it's just such a beautiful area. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a little bit of a walk further down, because it is so nice today, and this beautiful sort of spring day, and you can hear all the animals and everything about. There's a nice little information board here, but it's seen better days. Some beautiful photos, again mentioning Mother Ludlam, which we sort of spoke about, the cauldron that was never returned, and about the bats we've spoken about. And obviously its history, more importantly, with Waverley Abbey as well. Part of the Moore Park Heritage Trust, I think, is really the main association with it. But yeah, absolutely fascinating. Beautiful sandstone colour, wonderful. And just this natural trickling spring well. So nice. Really wish I could sort of show you it more, but I think you get the idea. So obviously what's happened is, Finger of Doom, they've put all of this over. They're flint, really. They're flint bricks, I suppose. Flint bricks? I can't really talk, really. Flint, yeah. You're not flint, sorry, sandstone. Sandstone bricks, tiles, I can't talk, you know what I mean. and they line all of this to almost look like a folly or a grotto, actually. But the history, it's fascinating. Like we said before, there are a couple of more caves in the area, but a lot of this is all fenced off now. People have got new builds or private, whatever is going on up there. That wasn't there last time I remember it, but then like I said, last time I came here was about a good 8 years ago, I think. I was trying to remember when I came down here specifically. But the good thing is, I'm not that far away from Farnham. So, yeah, 2 ticks on the list. But fascinating. Anyway, look, we hope you enjoyed that brief little video on Mother Ludlam's cave. And, yeah, there you go. No more words of Phoenix history. Thank you so much for coming along with me. Hopefully you had a really nice time. Take care, everybody. Feel free to spread the word of the channel. Much love. Ready? Kapow.